You can heal without medication. The hidden power of your thoughts, according to Buddhism. What if the healing you have been searching for does not begin in a bottle, a hospital room, or somewhere far beyond your reach, but in the silent space between one thought and the next? There are wounds that medicine can treat, infections that require proper care, and conditions for which professional help may be essential. Buddhist wisdom does not ask us to reject medicine, distrust doctors, or ignore the body's warning signs. True wisdom never turns care into an enemy. Yet, there is another dimension of healing that no prescription can accomplish on its own. The healing of the frightened mind, the exhausted heart, and the inner tension that quietly shapes the way we experience our lives. Sometimes, the body receives treatment while the mind continues to suffer. Sometimes, the pain begins to fade, but fear keeps repeating the memory of it. And sometimes, even when no visible wound remains, a person still wakes each morning feeling heavy, restless, and strangely disconnected from life. The Buddha's teaching invites us to look gently at this hidden landscape. It asks us to notice how thoughts become emotions, how emotions influence the body, and how the stories we repeat can either tighten our suffering or create room for peace. This is not magical thinking. It is not the belief that every illness can be wished away. It is the discovery that although we cannot always control what happens within the body, we can transform the relationship we have with what is happening. And sometimes, that transformation becomes the beginning of a deeper kind of healing. Before we continue, if you are drawn to teachings that bring peace, clarity, and wisdom into everyday life, subscribe to Buddhist Wisdom and walk with us on this quiet journey. And in the comments, write these simple words: "My mind is learning to heal." Let this affirmation be more than a sentence. Let it become the first compassionate thought you offer yourself today. Now, take a slow breath. Imagine a lake hidden deep inside an ancient forest. At dawn, its surface is still enough to reflect the mountains, the clouds, and the pale light of the morning sky. But when a storm passes through, the water becomes disturbed, leaves fall into it, mud rises from the bottom, the reflection disappears. If someone who had never seen the lake before arrived during the storm, they might believe the water had always been cloudy. They might think the lake itself was broken. But the wise person knows that the lake has not lost its nature. Beneath the movement, its capacity for stillness remains. Your mind is much like this lake. Pain, disappointment, fear, grief, anger, and uncertainty move through you like storms. When they remain for a long time, you may begin to identify with them. You no longer say, "Fear is present." You say, "I am afraid." You no longer notice, "A painful thought has appeared." You begin to believe, "This pain is who I am." Without realizing it, a temporary experience becomes an identity. In Buddhist practice, this confusion is one of the roots of suffering. We mistake what is passing for what is permanent. We hold a single dark cloud in our hands and call it the entire sky. Perhaps you have done this with your own suffering. Perhaps you have whispered, "I will always feel this way." Perhaps a diagnosis, a betrayal, a loss, or a season of exhaustion has become the center of your identity. Perhaps your thoughts return to it so often that even peaceful moments feel unfamiliar. The body may be sitting safely in a quiet room, yet the mind is still running through yesterday's fire. This is where inner healing begins, not by denying the fire, but by realizing that you are more than what burned. Long ago, in a monastery surrounded by tall bamboo, there lived a young monk named Sanu. He had entered the monastery hoping to find peace, but peace seemed to avoid him. His body was often tense, his sleep was shallow, his heart raced whenever he heard unexpected footsteps behind him. Before becoming a monk, Sanu had lived through a season of deep hardship. Although the danger had passed, his mind continued to prepare for it. Every silence seemed suspicious. Every unfamiliar face appeared threatening. Even the wind, striking the wooden shutters, could awaken him at night. One morning, after finding Sanu sitting alone beneath a cedar tree, an elderly master quietly joined him. "Master," Sanu said, "I came here to become peaceful, but my mind has followed me." The master looked toward a flock of birds rising from the valley. "If a frightened bird escapes from a cage," he said, "does it immediately forget the cage?" Sanu remained silent. "The door may be open," the master continued, "but for a while, the bird still carries the shape of the cage inside its wings." Sanu lowered his eyes. "Then how does it become free?" "It learns, little by little, that the sky does not have bars." The master did not tell Sanu to suppress his memories. He did not accuse him of lacking discipline. Instead, he taught him to sit with one hand resting gently over his heart. Whenever fear appeared, Sanu was to breathe slowly and say within himself, "Fear is here, and I am here with it." At first, the practice felt useless. The fear did not immediately disappear. His heart still raced. His thoughts still searched for danger. But the master reminded him, "Do not turn meditation into another battle. A trembling bird does not need a command. It needs a safe branch." So Sanu stopped demanding instant peace from himself. Day after day, he sat beneath the cedar tree. He noticed the cool air entering his nostrils. He felt the earth supporting his body. He listened to the bamboo moving with the wind. When fear arose, he did not chase it away. When fear faded, he did not try to hold on to relief. Gradually, something subtle changed. The fear still visited him, but it no longer owned the entire house. This is one of the hidden powers of awareness. What we observe with compassion begins to loosen its control over us. What we fight blindly often grows stronger, because resistance tells the mind that the experience is dangerous and must be feared. Imagine holding a small stone tightly in your fist. The longer you squeeze it, the more painful your hand becomes. Eventually, you may blame the stone for your suffering. Yet part of the pain comes from the force with which you are holding it. Letting go does not mean pretending the stone never existed. It means slowly opening the hand. Many people unknowingly hold their pain in this way. They resist sadness because they believe sadness makes them weak. They reject fear because they think a spiritual person should never be afraid. They feel ashamed of exhaustion, angry at their own bodies, and impatient with the time healing requires. Then suffering divides into two layers. There is the original pain, and there is the pain of believing the original pain should not be there. Buddhist wisdom teaches us to soften the second layer. If sadness is present, can you meet it without calling yourself broken? If your body is tired, can you listen without treating it as an enemy? If healing is taking longer than you hoped, can you release the belief that your progress must follow a perfect schedule? A lotus does not become beautiful by resenting the mud. It uses what surrounds it, reaches quietly toward the light, and opens when the conditions are ready. You, too, are allowed to heal without hating the place from which you are growing. And yet, many people misunderstand the power of thought. They imagine that a positive thought must immediately create a positive result, or that illness appears because someone failed to think correctly. This is not compassion, it is another form of judgment. You are not responsible for every pain that enters your life. The body is part of nature. It changes, ages, becomes vulnerable, and sometimes falls ill. Wise care may include doctors, medication, therapy, nourishing food, movement, rest, and the support of others. Buddhism does not require you to abandon these things. Medicine can help the body heal, while awareness can help the mind stop adding fear, shame, and resistance to the experience. The hidden power of your thoughts is not that they give you complete control over life. Their power lies in the way they shape your relationship with life. A thought can make one difficult moment feel endless. A thought can turn uncertainty into catastrophe before anything has happened. A thought can reopen a wound each morning, even when the event that caused it has already passed. But a thought can also become a doorway. It can say, "This moment is painful, but it will change." It can remind you, "I am experiencing fear, but I am not made only of fear." It can whisper, "I do not have to solve my entire life before I allow myself to breathe." These thoughts are not empty affirmations painted over suffering. They are seeds of wisdom. When watered repeatedly through mindfulness, they begin to change the inner soil in which your emotions grow. Consider the difference between two travelers caught beneath the same storm. The first traveler looks at the dark sky and says, "The sun has abandoned me. This storm will never end. I am cursed to walk beneath darkness forever." The second traveler feels the same cold rain and hears the same thunder, but says, "The storm is here. I will seek shelter, protect my body, and wait with patience." No storm has ever remained in the sky forever. Both travelers are wet. Both must respond to the weather. But inwardly, they are living in two different worlds. This is not because the second traveler denies reality. It is because the second traveler sees reality more completely. The storm is real, but so is impermanence. The darkness is real, but so is the hidden sun above the clouds. Your thoughts become painful when they show you only one fragment of reality and convince you that it is the whole. When you are exhausted, the mind says, "I will never have energy again." When you are rejected, it says, "No one will ever love me." When you make a mistake, it says, "I am a failure." When pain returns, it says, "All my progress has disappeared." These thoughts often arrive with such confidence that we mistake them for truth. Yet a thought is not a prophecy. It is a mental event formed from memory, emotion, habit, and fear. Like a bird crossing the evening sky, it appears, remains for a moment, and passes, unless you build a cage around it and invite it to stay. Mindfulness teaches you to see the bird without becoming the bird. You may quietly notice, the thought that I will never recover is present. This small change in language creates space. You are no longer standing inside the thought. You are looking at it. You do not need to argue with it. You do not need to replace it with a promise you cannot believe. Simply observe it with curiosity. Where do you feel it in the body? Does your chest become tight? Does your breathing grow shallow? Does your stomach contract? Does your face become tense? The thought may seem to live only in the mind, but the body often receives its message. It prepares itself according to the story being told. This is why compassionate awareness matters. When you recognize the story, soften your breathing, and return to the present, you offer the body a different message. In this moment, I am here. In this moment, I can be gentle with myself. There was once a monk named Tenzin who cared for the garden of a mountain temple. During one cold season, he became weak and could no longer work as he once had. He accepted the herbs and care offered by a healer, yet he grew impatient when his strength did not return quickly. Each morning, he stood at the edge of the garden and watched the other monks carry water, sweep the paths, and repair the temple roof. A single thought began to follow him. I am no longer useful. The more he believed it, the heavier his body seemed to become. One afternoon, the oldest monk in the temple found Tenzin staring at a bare plum tree. What do you see? The elder asked. A tree that gives nothing, Tenzin replied. The elder smiled gently. Then you are not seeing the tree. You are seeing your impatience. Tenzin looked again. The branches were empty. No blossoms, no fruit, no green leaves, only dark wood against the pale winter sky. The tree is resting, said the elder. Its work has gone beneath the surface. Tenzin lowered his head, understanding that the master was not speaking only about the tree. "But I do nothing," he whispered. "You are learning to receive care," the elder answered. "For someone who has built his identity around giving, receiving may be the more difficult practice." These words touched the place where Tenzin's suffering had been hiding. His weakness was real, but his deepest pain came from the belief that his worth depended on constant usefulness. He had treated rest as failure. He had treated dependence as shame. He had treated his changing body as a betrayal. From that day forward, Tenzin began a different practice. Whenever the thought, "I am useless," appeared, he placed both hands around a warm cup of tea and looked toward the winter garden. "This is a season," he reminded himself. "It is not my identity." He continued receiving appropriate care. He ate what nourished him. He slept when his body asked for sleep. But he also stopped attacking himself for needing time. Some days his strength returned. On other days, it seemed to disappear again. Yet his mind was no longer measuring healing like a merchant counting coins. He began to understand that recovery is rarely a straight path. It moves like a forest trail, sometimes rising, sometimes descending, sometimes circling around an obstacle before continuing toward the mountain. When spring finally came, the plum tree blossomed before Tenzin felt completely strong. He stood beneath its white flowers and realized that he, too, had been changing invisibly. His body had needed care, but his heart had needed permission. Perhaps there is a part of you that is waiting for the same permission. Permission to rest without guilt. Permission to ask for help without feeling weak. Permission to follow treatment without believing you have failed spiritually. Permission to feel sadness without turning it into a permanent home. Permission to heal at the pace your life requires. The ego often wants healing to become an achievement. It wants to say, "I conquered this. I mastered my mind. I defeated my pain." But true healing is rarely a conquest. It is more like learning to float in a river. If you panic and strike the water violently, you exhaust yourself. If you surrender completely without awareness, the current may carry you toward danger. Wisdom lies between these extremes. You respect the river, move when movement is necessary, rest when rest is possible, and stop fighting the fact that water is wet. Acceptance is not passivity. It is clear seeing. It says, "This is what is present. What is the wisest response available to me now?" Sometimes the wisest response is meditation. Sometimes it is sleep. Sometimes it is forgiveness. Sometimes it is an honest conversation. Sometimes it is leaving a harmful environment. Sometimes it is making an appointment with a qualified professional and allowing yourself to receive help. The awakened mind does not cling to one form of healing. It uses whatever reduces suffering without creating greater harm. And as you learn this, your thoughts begin to serve wisdom instead of fear. They become less like prison walls and more like windows. Through them, you begin to see that healing does not always mean returning to the person you were before the pain. Sometimes, healing means becoming someone more patient, someone who listens to the body, someone who no longer confuses productivity with worth, someone who knows that vulnerability is not the opposite of strength, someone who can sit beneath a winter tree and trust that unseen life is still moving beneath the surface. The season may not change today. The branches may still appear empty, but deep within you, where no one else can see, the first movement of spring may already have begun. And when that spring begins, it rarely announces itself with thunder. It may appear as one gentle thought where there was once only judgment. It may be the moment you wake with familiar heaviness and, instead of saying, "What is wrong with me?" you quietly ask, "What does this tired part of me need today?" It may be the first time you notice fear entering your mind without immediately following it into every dark possibility. It may be the day you forgive your body for not moving at the speed of your expectations. These changes seem small because the ego is attracted to dramatic transformation. It wants the mountain to move in a single night. But nature does not hurry in this way. A river shapes stone through patient contact. A seed breaks open in darkness before anyone sees a leaf. The moon crosses the sky without making a sound, yet by morning, it has traveled beyond the horizon. The deepest healing often happens with the same quiet persistence. Every thought you repeatedly welcome becomes a path through the forest of the mind. If you have walked the path of worry for many years, your feet will naturally turn toward it. This does not mean you are weak. It means the path has become familiar. The mind often confuses familiarity with safety. Even painful thoughts can feel strangely secure because we know where they lead. Hope, by contrast, may feel uncertain. Peace may feel unfamiliar. Rest may make us anxious when we have spent years surviving through constant activity. This is why changing the mind requires patience rather than force. You cannot create a new path by standing at the entrance of the old one and hating yourself for having used it. You create it by gently choosing another direction, again and again. Perhaps the familiar thought says, something terrible is about to happen. The new path does not need to promise, nothing difficult will ever happen to me. It can simply say, whatever this day brings, I will meet it one moment at a time. Perhaps the old path says, I must become completely well before I can enjoy my life. The wiser path might say, even while healing, I am allowed to notice one beautiful thing. Then you look through the window and see rain resting on a leaf. You feel warmth from a cup held between your hands. You hear a bird singing from a rooftop without knowing whether anyone is listening. For one breath, you are not waiting for life to begin. You are alive within it. This is the healing power of presence. It does not guarantee that discomfort will vanish. It releases you from the habit of postponing peace until every condition becomes perfect. There was once an elderly woman named Mira who traveled to a forest monastery after carrying grief for many years. Her only daughter had moved far away. Her husband had died, and the house in which she lived had become so silent that every room seemed to remind her of someone absent. Mira believed that her sadness was caused only by loneliness. Yet when she arrived at the monastery, she discovered that even among kind people, the heaviness remained. A monk invited her to sit beside a river each morning. "What must I do there?" she asked. "Listen," he replied. "To what?" "To whatever is present." On the first morning, Mira heard only the voice of her own sorrow. She remembered meals once shared, footsteps that no longer crossed her doorway, and words she wished she had spoken. On the second morning, she heard the river beneath those memories. On the third, she noticed the rustling of leaves. Days passed. She heard insects moving in the grass, wind brushing the reeds, and distant temple bells dissolving into the valley. Her grief did not disappear, but it was no longer the only sound in the world. One evening, she said to the monk, "I thought healing meant forgetting what I had lost." The monk shook his head. "A heart that forgets love has not healed. It has closed." "Then what is healing?" she asked. "It is allowing grief to sit beside gratitude without forcing either one to leave." Mira looked toward the river. The setting sun had turned the water gold, though the water itself had not changed. In that moment, she understood that thoughts are sometimes like light. They do not alter every circumstance, but they change what becomes visible within it. Her loneliness still existed. Her memories remained. Yet she began to see that grief was evidence of love, not proof that life had abandoned her. From then on, whenever sorrow entered her home, she made tea and opened a window. She did not tell herself to stop grieving. She simply remembered that sadness was one visitor, not the owner of the house. This is emotional healing, according to Buddhist wisdom, not the destruction of difficult feelings, but freedom from becoming imprisoned inside them. Anger may visit, but it does not have to choose your words. Fear may visit, but it does not have to write your future. Grief may visit, but it does not have to erase gratitude. Pain may visit, but it does not have to convince you that beauty has disappeared from the earth. When you understand this, meditation becomes less about controlling the mind and more about knowing it. You sit as the sky sits above the changing weather. A thought appears, I am not enough. You notice it as a cloud. A memory appears. You allow it to move. A sensation rises in the body. You breathe around it without immediately calling it dangerous. If a symptom is new, intense, persistent, or concerning, wisdom includes seeking qualified medical care. Mindfulness is not a replacement for responsible treatment. It is the clear awareness that helps you respond without abandoning yourself to panic or denial. The middle path does not worship medication, and it does not reject it. It does not believe every problem can be solved by thought, nor does it ignore the influence that thoughts have on suffering. It asks a more compassionate question. What combination of outer care and inner wisdom will reduce harm and support life? Sometimes healing begins with a prescription. Sometimes it begins with boundaries. Sometimes it begins with sleep, nourishment, therapy, movement, meditation, forgiveness, or the courage to speak a truth that has remained trapped in the heart. Often, it begins through several of these doors at once. If this teaching is helping you see your healing with greater compassion, gently press the like button so this message can reach another person who may need it today. And in the comments, write, I choose thoughts that make room for peace. Do not write these words as a command to feel good. Write them as a promise that when painful thoughts appear, you will not hand them the keys to your entire inner world. You will pause, you will breathe, you will listen, and then, with patience, you will decide which thoughts deserve to be watered. For the mind is a garden, but you are not required to nourish every seed that falls into it. Some seeds are carried by old storms. Some were planted by people who did not understand your worth. Some come from fear, comparison, shame, or memories of moments when you felt powerless. You may not control every seed that arrives, but with awareness, you can choose what you cultivate. When the thought says, you should have healed by now, water patience. When it says, you are a burden, water self-compassion. When it says, your past has ruined you, water the wisdom of impermanence. When it says, you must do this alone, water humility and allow someone trustworthy to help. And when the mind says, there is no hope, do not force yourself to imagine a distant, perfect future. Simply return to the next breath. Hope does not always begin as a bright sunrise. Sometimes it begins as the decision to remain present through one more moment of darkness. And if you can remain present for one more breath, something quiet begins to change. You discover that darkness is not a solid wall. It is a passing condition, like night resting over a valley. During the deepest hours, the mountains seem to disappear, the forest loses its colors, and every path becomes uncertain. Yet the mountain has not vanished. The path has not been destroyed. They are simply waiting for light to reveal them again. In the same way, when the mind is overwhelmed, it may lose sight of possibilities that still exist. This is why you should be careful about making permanent conclusions during temporary storms. A painful night may tell you that your entire life is painful. A season of weakness may tell you that you will never be strong again. One disappointment may persuade you that the future has closed its doors. But the mind speaks from the weather of the present moment. It does not always see beyond the clouds. Buddhist wisdom invites you to pause before believing every voice that rises within you. Not because your thoughts are evil, but because many of them were created to protect you in situations that no longer exist. The thought that says, trust no one, may have formed after betrayal. The thought that says, "never rest," may have developed during a time when survival required constant effort. The thought that says, "hide your feelings," may have protected you when your vulnerability was not treated with care. These thoughts may once have served a purpose, but a boat that carries you across a river should not be lifted onto your shoulders and carried for the rest of your journey. You can thank an old thought for trying to protect you and still decide that you no longer need to obey it. This is letting go without violence. You do not say, "I hate this fearful part of myself." You say, "I understand why you are afraid, but we are no longer where we once were." You do not say, "I must destroy my negative thoughts." You say, "These thoughts are suffering. They need awareness, not punishment." When met in this way, the mind slowly learns that it does not need to shout in order to be heard. There was once a young seeker named Arun who arrived at a quiet temple near the sea. For many years, he had carried anger toward his father. Even after his father died, Arun continued to replay old conversations, imagining different answers and victories that could no longer happen. He believed he was keeping the memory alive because justice required it. But each time he repeated the story, his body tightened. His jaw became rigid, his breathing shortened, sleep avoided him. The person who had hurt him was gone, yet the suffering continued to live inside Arun's thoughts. One evening, the temple master asked him to carry a bowl of seawater up a steep hill. Arun did as he was told. The bowl was not heavy at first, but as the path climbed, his arms began to ache. The salt water spilled onto his clothes, and irritation rose within him. At the top of the hill, the master asked, "Why did you not put the bowl down?" "You told me to carry it," Arun replied. "I asked you to carry it up the hill. I never told you that you could not rest." Arun looked at the bowl in silence. The master continued, "This is how many people carry pain. They believe that putting it down means approving of what happened." "Doesn't forgiveness excuse the person who caused the wound?" Arun asked. "No," said the master. "Forgiveness means you stop asking yesterday to become different. It means you refuse to drink salt water simply because someone else poured it into your bowl." Arun's eyes filled with tears. For the first time, he understood that his anger had become a bond. He had confused suffering with loyalty to his own wounded heart. The master did not ask him to forget. He did not tell him that reconciliation was necessary. Some boundaries must remain. Some relationships should not be reopened. Forgiveness does not require returning to a place where harm continues. Instead, Arun learned to release the argument that existed only in his mind. Whenever the old conversations began, he felt his feet on the earth and whispered, "That moment has ended. I am breathing in this moment now." At first, he had to repeat it many times. Some memories returned with great force. Some nights, the anger felt as fresh as it had years before. But Arun stopped measuring progress by whether the memory appeared. He measured it by how compassionately he responded when it did. Slowly, his body began to understand what his thoughts had refused to accept. The danger was no longer present. This is one way the mind participates in healing. It gives the body permission to leave battles that have already ended. How many battles are still being fought inside you? Perhaps you are still defending yourself in conversations that happened years ago. Perhaps you awaken every morning beneath the judgment of someone who is no longer part of your life. Perhaps you punish yourself for a decision made by a younger version of you who did not possess the wisdom you have today. If so, place a hand over your heart for a moment. Do not force yourself to forgive everything immediately. Forgiveness that is demanded becomes another burden. Simply acknowledge the weight. Say quietly within yourself, "I have carried this for a long time." Breathe in. "This pain deserves compassion." Breathe out. "I am allowed to put down what I no longer need to carry." Notice what happens. There may be relief, there may be resistance, there may be sadness, anger, numbness, or nothing at all. Whatever appears, let it be enough. Meditation is not successful only when you feel peaceful. Sometimes a successful meditation is the moment you finally notice how tired you are. Sometimes it is recognizing an old wound without running away. Sometimes it is discovering that beneath your anger lives grief, and beneath your grief lives a heart that wanted to be loved. Awareness removes the masks that suffering wears. When you sit in silence, you may first meet noise. This surprises many people. They close their eyes, expecting a still temple, and discover a crowded marketplace of memories, fears, plans, judgments, and unfinished conversations. They conclude, "I am bad at meditation." But seeing the noise is the beginning of meditation. Before awareness, the marketplace was already there. You simply moved through it without noticing how loudly it shaped your life. Now you are standing still enough to hear it. Do not try to silence every voice. Listen as you would listen to rain falling on a temple roof. One drop, then another. No single drop needs to be controlled. A thought arises. You notice it. A sensation appears. You breathe. An emotion passes through. You make room for it. Then, you return to the simple feeling of being alive. The breath entering, the breath leaving, the body supported by the earth. This ordinary moment becomes sacred, not because something supernatural has happened, but because you are finally present for your own life. And presence is where wise action begins. From presence, you can recognize whether you need rest or movement, solitude or companionship, meditation or medical attention. You become less likely to react from panic and more capable of responding with clarity. The healing power of thought is therefore not a weapon used to conquer the body. It is a lantern. It helps you see where suffering has hidden, which burdens belong to the present, which belong to the past, and which steps can be taken with compassion. A lantern does not remove the entire night. It gives you enough light for the next step, and sometimes the next step is all the light you need. With that small circle of light before you, you do not need to understand the entire journey. You do not need to know exactly when the pain will end, when your strength will return, or when the mind will finally stop revisiting old wounds. You only need enough awareness to recognize what this moment is asking of you. Perhaps it is asking you to unclench your hands. Perhaps it is asking you to breathe more slowly. Perhaps it is asking you to stop speaking to yourself in the voice of those who once wounded you. Perhaps it is asking you to accept help. Or perhaps, after years of running from silence, it is simply asking you to sit beside yourself and stay. There is profound healing in no longer abandoning yourself. Many people believe their suffering comes only from what happened to them. Yet beneath that suffering, there is often another wound, the moment they decided that some part of themselves was no longer worthy of love. They became angry and condemned their anger. They became afraid and felt ashamed of their fear. They became exhausted and accused themselves of laziness. They became ill and believed their body had betrayed them. They made a mistake and withdrew compassion from the person in the mirror. But healing begins when this inner abandonment ends. Imagine a child lost in a forest during a storm. The child does not need someone to stand at a distance and shout, "Stop being afraid." The child needs a warm hand, a calm voice, and the assurance that the path home can be found one step at a time. There is a frightened part within every human being that needs this same compassion. When pain arises, become the hand. When fear speaks, become the calm voice. When the road is unclear, become the patience that takes one step without demanding to see the whole path. This is not weakness. It is the beginning of inner refuge. In Buddhist teaching, refuge is not merely a place outside us. It is the wisdom we cultivate within, the ability to return to awareness when the mind becomes lost, to compassion when the heart becomes hardened, and to the present when fear carries us too far into an imagined future. The world may remain uncertain, but you no longer have to become uncertainty. The body may experience discomfort, but you do not have to become only discomfort. A difficult thought may knock on the door, but you are not required to prepare a room for it. You can acknowledge its arrival and let it continue on its way. Think of a mountain standing beneath the changing seasons. In spring, flowers cover its lower slopes. In summer, sunlight warms its stones. In autumn, leaves gather along its paths. In winter, snow hides everything beneath a silent white sky. The mountain does not cling to spring. It does not resist winter. It allows each season to arrive, remain, and pass. Your inner life also moves through seasons. There are seasons of energy and seasons of rest, seasons of certainty and seasons in which every answer seems hidden, seasons when meditation feels spacious and others when sitting quietly reveals only restlessness. Do not judge the entire journey by the season you are in. Winter is not evidence that the forest has failed. Night is not evidence that the sun has died. A pause is not proof that healing has stopped. Much of life grows in darkness. The seed beneath the soil cannot see the sunrise, yet it moves toward it. In the same way, each moment of mindful breathing, each compassionate thought, each boundary you honor, each hour of needed rest, and each time you ask for appropriate help may be guiding you toward a light you cannot yet see. Trust does not mean believing that life will unfold exactly as you wish. It means understanding that you can meet life without losing your deepest humanity. You can meet pain without becoming cruel. You can meet uncertainty without surrendering completely to fear. You can meet change without trying to imprison what must pass. You can meet yourself exactly as you are today without postponing love until you become someone different. This is inner freedom. It does not require a perfect body, a silent mind, or a life without loss. It arises when your peace is no longer entirely dependent on controlling every condition. You begin to realize that thoughts are tools, not masters. Some thoughts help you understand danger and take wise action. Others repeat old suffering long after their usefulness has ended. Mindfulness teaches you to know the difference. Before following a thought, you can ask, does this thought bring clarity or does it deepen confusion? Does it lead me toward wise care or toward panic and neglect? Does it help me respond to reality or does it imprison me inside an imagined future? Does it carry compassion or does it use shame as a whip? A wise thought does not always feel pleasant. Sometimes wisdom says, you need help. Sometimes it says, this relationship is harming you. Sometimes it says, your body needs attention. Sometimes it asks you to face a truth you have avoided. But wisdom never humiliates you. It does not tell you that you are worthless. It does not insist that suffering makes you a failure. Its voice is firm when necessary, yet beneath that firmness there is compassion. Like a temple bell heard across a mist-covered valley, it calls you back without chasing you. And each time you return, the distance between you and peace becomes smaller. Not because peace was far away, but because the mind had been traveling everywhere except the present. So when you wake tomorrow, do not demand that every wound be healed. Begin more gently. Before reaching for the worries of the day, place one hand over your heart and feel one complete breath. Notice that life is moving through you without requiring your command. Then offer yourself a thought rooted in truth. This day does not have to be perfect for me to meet it with awareness. As you rise, feel your feet touching the ground. As you drink water, simply drink. As you walk, know that you are walking. When fear appears, name it gently. When gratitude appears, allow yourself to receive it. When the body asks for care, listen. When the mind needs support, seek it. When medicine is appropriate, accept it without shame. When professional care is needed, let reaching for it become an act of wisdom. Inner practice and responsible treatment can walk beside one another like two travelers sharing the same path. And when no immediate solution can be found, remember the ancient strength of patience. Patience is not lifeless waiting. It is the quiet courage to remain compassionate while life is still unfolding. The bamboo survives the storm because it knows how to bend. The river reaches the ocean because it does not demand a straight road. The lotus rises because it does not refuse the darkness from which it grows. You also possess this quiet intelligence. Perhaps it has been covered by fear, buried beneath exhaustion, or silenced by years of self-judgment. But it has not disappeared. The still lake remains beneath the storm. The open sky remains beyond the cage. The spring remains hidden inside the winter tree, and the light of awareness remains within you, waiting to illuminate the next step. Healing may not always look like the complete disappearance of pain. Sometimes it looks like no longer being afraid of every sensation. Sometimes it is sleeping peacefully after months of inner conflict. Sometimes it is setting down resentment, receiving care, speaking honestly, or laughing without feeling guilty. Sometimes healing is simply recognizing, I am still here, and I no longer wish to be my own enemy. Let that recognition settle deeply within you. You do not need to fight yourself into wholeness. You do not need to force every thought into silence. You do not need to prove your strength by suffering alone. You can heal through awareness. You can heal through compassion. You can heal by changing the thoughts that repeatedly turn pain into identity. You can heal by accepting what is present while still taking wise steps toward change. And you can heal by remembering that, although you may carry wounds, you are not made only of what wounded you. You are also the awareness that sees, the patience that remains, the compassion that returns, the wisdom that chooses again. If this journey has brought even a little more space into your mind, subscribe to Buddhist wisdom and share this teaching with someone whose heart may be carrying a silent burden. And in the comments, write your final affirmation. I am no longer fighting myself. I am healing with wisdom and compassion. Let those words become your promise. Not a promise that you will never experience pain again, but a promise that you will meet pain differently. Not a promise that fear will never return, but a promise that fear will not walk alone. Not a promise of complete control, but a commitment to presence, wise care, and kindness toward the life within you. Now, take one final, unhurried breath. Imagine the sun rising beyond a distant mountain. The first light touches the forest, enters the valley, and rests upon the roof of an ancient temple. Birds begin to move among the trees. The river continues its journey. A lotus slowly opens upon the quiet water. Nothing is forcing the morning to arrive. It comes because darkness, too, is impermanent. May you remember this when your path feels uncertain. May you offer your body the care it needs, your mind the awareness it needs, and your heart the compassion it has always deserved. May you release the burdens that no longer belong to your journey. May your thoughts become gentle companions rather than invisible chains. May your mind become peaceful, your heart become compassionate, and your journey be guided by wisdom. And wherever life carries you from this moment forward, may you never forget that the light you seek may already be quietly awakening within you.